Hello, everyone. This is William Giles. I'm coming to you with a quick study that I want to bring to you. I'm thinking this will be very beneficial and good to read about. And those who it help, I hope it helps you very well. I will say this. I've did this study before on a different platform. Some things transpired that it did not allow me to continue to teach on that platform. So I just had to let that go, and now I'm over here on my own platform, so I'm continuing my study, and I'll explain more as I get to the time where I dropped off. So what I'm going to do now is quickly go through some things that I already talked about before, and well, when I dropped off in my lesson on the other platform, I'll explain to you why I'm talking the way I'm talking, and I'm picking up where I left off. So, please comment, have any questions. I'll try my best to get in touch with you as soon as possible on the things that are being studied throughout this lesson. So, study of finances from a biblical standpoint. I've looked at a few of the characters, the men of whom we can take a lesson from. And so far, to begin this study off, I looked at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And some of the primary reasons why I looked at these men to start this lesson off was because of the attributes that they had, some including their ability to be wealthy and their ability to pass down wealth, but also some parenting lessons that we can take from this, and also while we're talking about this, to attach it to finances, as far as what can we do to help our next generation. So, let's start off in the book of Genesis chapter 12. Let's pull some key points about Abraham. Genesis 12:1, it reads, "Now the Lord said to Abram, Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse him who curses you. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Amen to that. Let's skip over to, let's quick note about that. We can understand from here, it's always a good thing to put your faith, your trust in the Most High Father in heaven. It's always a good thing to do that. Let's take a lesson from Abraham, that when God seeks you out and wants to bless you, it is not a wise thing to pass up the blessings that God gives. So, God is in the blessing business. Let's accept His blessings. It's a good thing to be blessed. Now let's go over to the book of Genesis 13, chapter 13, and let's read verses 1 and 2. And it reads, "Then Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, to the south. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver, and in gold." And that livestock, if you go up to verse 16, right above in verse 16 of chapter 12, it reads, "He treated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys, and camels." And that talks about some of the things that Abraham had during the time he was on this earth. And I believe that is such a blessing to have that in your possession, because obvious to say that in terms of what he had, when you're financially set, you have the ability to get things done. And so you always want to see to it that with the ability of the things God can bless you with and he gives you, see to it that you take it and use it accordingly. Those are some of the things we can take from Abraham. But now let's move on to a lesson from Isaac. And as we go from Abraham, which we see how wealthy he was, when we go to Isaac, now we're going to start talking a little bit about parenting. And so when we go to Genesis 25, Genesis 25, and around verse 21, now a little background about Isaac. Isaac and his wife Rebecca, she had a little trouble having children, which happens sometimes. And we see here when we read verse 21, now Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his plea, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her. And she said, if all is well, why am I like this? So she went to inquire of the Lord. Now let me say this, throughout this study, from time to time, I'm actually going to revert back to this question, why am I like this? So take a note of this. Genesis 25, verse 21, a question is being asked. And as I'm going to ask this question quite a bit, because I believe that is a question that is relevant to this very day. We'll talk about it when the time comes. But remember, why am I like this? Let's keep reading verse 23. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 people shall be separated from your body, 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. And we see here is God gave an answer. So one of the things I would say, as we read scriptures, some people may not like questions that you ask. And I would even go as far as to say I understand that sometimes speaking about commerce and capitalism and finances and wealth, it could become a tricky subject. But in time, you will see this was something that was all through the Bible. And I believe the more we talk about it, the more desensitized we'll become to it. And therefore, we wouldn't be in so much war over some things. And in fact, if you even look at the answer that God gave Rebecca, as she's asking the question, if all is well, why am I like this? When we inquire of the Lord, his answer is his answer. Sometimes we don't like his answer, but it's his answer. And in this case, essentially he said, it's going to be war. That's something that he set up. And so as we go down and we read verse 30, we see here one of the lessons that we can take, especially as we see here Rebecca and Isaac have children that are at war. Now, as a parent, you know and I know you do not expect to look at your children and see war when you look at your children. And as a parent, that is one of the hardest things to do. See your children fighting. That's not something that you long for. You don't wish that on your children. But we can take this lesson from Isaac and say, okay, now what can I learn from this so that my children are not at war? Well, I can't tell you how to govern your children. I can't tell anybody how to treat their children. But I can say, as a parent, anybody who actually loves their children would not allow them to just sit there and just fight each other. It's not something that parents want for their children. And there's no other way to say it. But also, what else can we teach them? We can teach them things like how to always get along and be fair. That's a good thing to teach your children based on this subject. As we talk about Isaac, let's see something else we can teach our children. Let's see if we can teach our children how to place good value systems on things that they have obtained. I would say when it comes to wealth, passing down wealth, that would be a very wise thing to teach your children. How to place value on what they have obtained, what they worked for, and what you give them. If you give them something, which would be a good thing to do. So let's read verse 30. We're still in Genesis 25. Let's read verse 30. And we're going to see here, whenever a value system is not implemented into our children by way of how we teach them, then it's safe to say our children will sometimes make very unwise decisions. In verse 30 it says, and Esau said to Jacob, actually let's read verse 39. In 39 it says, now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, sell me your birthright as of this day. And Esau said, look, I am about to die, so what is this birthright to me? That was not a good question. Then Jacob said, swear me as of this day. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. Then he ate and drank, arose, and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. That was a very unwise thing to do. That was not good. So, to the younger generation, it's a lot to learn out here in this world. I hope that we learn to put our trust in people who know some things in life, who are wise, and can teach you some things. And not things that are foolish, like worrying about being worldly and sinning and things to that nature, but teach you something about living, how to survive, how to cook, how to clean, how to build things. Because when we take note of the wisdom that could be passed down from person to person and generation to generation, we wouldn't make unwise decisions like Esau did. Now, granted, I will say this. God set this up, and there's nothing that Esau could do about it. God didn't like Esau. And that's just what it is. Hebrews 12 would confirm that God did not like Esau. So, there's absolutely nothing we can do about that. But as parents, I think we can pull something from this story, and that is go about life with the time we have with our children and teaching them something that will benefit them in this world. I think that's something we can take from this. Now, let's go ahead and finish up here the study of finances. This will be part 1, and we're going to finish up with Jacob. Now, Jacob is quite a character. We have a lot that we can learn from Jacob. A whole lot. What can we learn from Jacob as we bring this lesson to a close? Let's start at Genesis chapter 30 and around verse 26. Genesis chapter 30, verse 26. And let's talk about Jacob a little bit. Let's see one of the things we can learn from Jacob. Background on Jacob real quick as we come up to this point in Genesis 30. This is after Jacob and Esau had the issue with the birthright being transferred. Jacob left his family, went to his uncle, who is Laban, which is now his boss, which is also where he married both of Jacob's daughters. Laban's daughters. And we have the 2 daughters and their maidservants, which he ended up having 4 wives, and out of those 4 wives, he had 12 children and 1 daughter. As we talk a little bit about parenting, and we're going to talk a little bit about work habits, and we're going to talk a little bit about transfer of wealth as we bring this conversation about Jacob to a close at part 1. Let's read here and pull up an idea about Jacob. In the book of Genesis chapter 30, verse 26, it says, "Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go. For you know my service which I have done for you." And Laban said to him, "Please stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake." Then he said, "Name me your wages, and I will give it." So Jacob said to him, "You know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me. For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming, and now when shall I also provide for my own house?" Now when we read that, we see something here. Something we can take from Jacob. As we read verse 30, and it says, "For what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to a great amount." This is something we can say about Jacob, and that was his work habits. As men and as providers for our household, this cannot be a plain matter as we begin to build wealth. Sometimes we don't get a lot. If you get a lot, hey, trust me, I'm all for you. I'm a root you on. I'm gonna pat you on the back and give you all the encouragement. I may not know nothing about the industry that you work in, but I'll tell you this: whatever you're doing, if it's working for you and your family, I would encourage you. As long as you never take anything and put it above God, I'ma always go for it. I'm gonna tell you, hey, go for it. Go for it. And as long as it's legal too, let me say that. I'm going to say go for it. And this is something that we can learn from Jacob. He was a man who knew how to work. And the work that he put in, you and I should know, we should expect to get something back from the work that we put in. There's nothing wrong with that. That's only fair. So, know your job, get paid for it. Be efficient at your job and in your profession. Know how to profit. That is something that we can learn from Jacob. Let's look at some other things we can learn from Jacob. Now let's talk a little bit about how we can transfer some of this this hard work and our dedication and what we get for our hard work and dedication. Well, let's take a look at this. At some point in time, you know and I know we're going to get old if good Lord allows us time on this earth. Well, by the time we get to Genesis chapter 42, we see here that Jacob is up in his age. Now I said Genesis 42. Actually, let's just right above Genesis 42. Let's go up to Genesis 41 and around verse 56. Just right above 42, right around verse 56. And we're going to read something here where we understand that Jacob had a son who was backstabbed by his brothers, and he was sold to Egyptian bondage. And at some point in time, his son Joseph, with his righteous actions and trusting in God, and it's a long story behind Joseph, but he was a young man who walked with God, and his walk with the Most High definitely got him into a very good position, and it was essentially to bless his family. It was a bit of a struggle to get to where he got to get to his position that was next to Pharaoh, but it was something that paid off in the end. And so therefore you see something that Joseph did. And in the book of Genesis 41 verse 56 it reads, "The famine was all over the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, and the famine became severe in the land of Egypt. So all countries came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain, because the famine was severe in all the lands." Now when you get to chapter 42, now we start talking about Jacob, which is up in age at this time. And let me say this. Notice the strength that's in Jacob as how he's dealing with his children. It's going to require some strength. It's going to require some counseling. It's going to require some time getting on them, because you can't play when things get hard. You got to teach them certain things. Sometimes you can teach them with a statement. And look at the statement that Jacob said. When Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at one another?" And that's a question mark right after that. Why do you look at one another? See, and I know I'm going to have to teach this to my children. My children are young. But I cannot just let them be idle. We can't, as parents, allow our children to sit there and let the internet and games and a whole bunch of other stuff consume them to the point where they're not being productive. And so Jacob stepped in like a father would, with the concern that I have to take care of my family. And some of his sons was grown at this time, but he still took care of his family. Now let me say this. At the time, it was a different economic system and stuff, so family was a lot more close-knit at the time. My goodness, I'm 24 minutes into this. Let me hurry up. almost 25 minutes into it. Let me hurry up. But we see here, Jacob took care of his family. That's something that we as men and the head of households, we understand that this is not a playing matter. And I want to encourage everyone, parents, even foster parents. I would even go as far as to say mentors. We can refer back to Genesis 42. If you see a child being idle and doing nothing, some point in time you're going to have to tell them, sitting around playing and doing nothing is not the answer. You can always do something. So, let me read this again. Genesis 42, verse 1 and 2. It says, when Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, why do you look at one another? And he said, indeed, I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down to that place and buy for us there, that we may live and not die. That right there tells us, right there on the spot, Jacob still was financially intact, even in his old age. And when he sent his children down to Egypt so they can do that, so they may live and not die, the same funding that he expected to get paid, where he expected to get paid for his hard work, at some point in time you're going to have to understand that same funding came into play in old age, when sometimes you don't think the livestock may not come in, the crop may not come in, certain things may not be there to help you, but funding can be there to help you, and it will help you to live and not die. So, put your trust in God. Teach your children. Passing down wealth. They're all good things to do. When we do that, we see that it has long-lasting outcomes that can help you, help the next generation. Let's try our best to keep it going. Always put God first and keep good going. This is part 1. Let me go ahead and stop this. Hope this lesson was beneficial. Just some key points. Part 2, part 3, I might end up going up to about part 5. Trying my best to get some of this stuff that I said before out the way, and so we can get to the good stuff. So, like, comment, subscribe. I'll try my best to answer any questions, give thumbs up to your comments as quickly as possible. Hope all is well. Stay in God's unchanging hands. Stay blessed.